Hello, I am Archivist Zarin, and welcome to my study. Today, we're, of course, as always, just playing around in WoW again. As of right now, it's pretty much all I've been doing. Uh, but there have been a few other things going on outside of streaming. Which, I mean, I guess there's always things going on outside of streaming because I don't stream 24/7, but you know what I mean. I've been working on coding things lately, but that has been very slow going as of now. And I've only been working on like
Time is money, friend.
smaller, less important projects that I'm not really gonna be releasing. But I'm as always, I'm back to contemplating my main project, the game that I actually want to make someday and release. But it's and the stuff that I've learned recently in coding has actually given me some significant insight as to how I can make this work. And I wanted to, I don't know, kind of just talk about it out loud to a degree. And okay, so there's 2 quests in here that are still my level. But I feel like it would be a good thing to get all my ideas out there and spoken so that, it's easier to contemplate. It's kind of like how coders, whenever they don't know what's wrong with their code, they talk about it out loud to an inanimate object, and their code starts to make more sense when they're actually trying to explain it. But essentially, lately I got into trying to figure out arrays, because what I was trying to do was I had a whole grid of like
Fastest griffins this side of Airy Peak.
a whole grid of zones and like rooms that you can enter in the game. And so what I was wanting to do was to make it so that certain events would happen on in one of those random squares. But I was having a lot of trouble figuring out how to do that, because if I just randomize, like, I could associate a number with each room and then pull a random number and put that event in that room. But the issue is that I couldn't figure out a way to exempt a room from having a second event put into it randomly. But because you can't have 2 events on the same square, so if I just completely randomize it, it ends up putting multiple in one, and that's an issue. So my first idea was a bunch of if statements, like do all the randomization, and then if event 1 is equal to event 2, re-randomize. If event 2 is equal to event 3, like I would need to pair each and every event to each other and be like, are these equal? And if they are, I would need to re-randomize until they're not equal. So that wasn't working. I mean, it was working. It worked perfectly fine. But the issue is that's a lot of thinking for the system to do. Because, I mean, imagine it. There's like, say there's 10 squares and 3 events. Well, let's just say, make it simple. 10 squares and 5 events. That means that 50% of the squares are going to be taken up with events, and that means there's a significant chance that 2 of those rooms, or 2 different events, are going to choose the same room number. And so, I would, it's probably more complicated than this, but I would say there's a 50% chance that that 2 events would end up on the same square, because 50% of the rooms are being taken up. It's a lot more complicated than that, because statistics, I'm not good with percentages and all that. But my point is that if that were to occur like 2 times in a row, then that means that the system would have to go through and randomize all these attributes, set them to the things, check all of them, see that they're not right, randomize again, check all of them, and then it would be fine. But say you get really unlucky and it happens 5 times in a row, 10 times in a row, then that is just ramping up. Based on complete RNG, it just ramps up the stress on the system. And, you know, as a coder, that's what you want to minimize. You want to have it run as smoothly and efficiently as possible. So I was sitting there like, this just isn't a good way to do it, especially because it was really wordy. So I had to sit there and type out each and every one of if this is equal to this and if this is equal to this, and it was a huge chunk of code. And I'd done it for the smallest of the zones, and it already took me like an hour to get it all set up, and just for the small one, and I was like, okay, this is not workable. So I ended up looking into arrays. You know, I asked my dad, because he works in coding, so not really game coding, so it's a different type of coding, but it's still, you know, there's similar things between all of them. So wait, I've never seen a skeleton in hardcore. Okay, that because the skeleton appears when you respawn, when you resurrect at your corpse. I don't know, maybe that happens when a corpse like decays finally, because I know if you die and then don't delete the character, the corpse stays there for a very long time. Maybe it does eventually decay into a skeleton, I don't know. But that's weird, because I've never seen that yet. I've seen corpses on the ground, just never skeleton corpses. Anyways, I'm getting off topic. Well, the coding stuff is already kind of off topic because I'm playing WoW and coding has nothing to do with that, but I'm getting on topic, we should say, and that's not good. That's not what I want. So essentially, I started learning how to use arrays, because an array would allow me to assign out of range. I tried, but yeah, I'm also kind of distracted. But an array would allow you to assign multiple values to the same attribute, and so you end up in a situation where you could have, you know, you could assign each and every room number to one portion of an array. So like you have 10 rooms, you could have 10 different values in the array, and then I figured out through, you know, Googling, figuring stuff out, how you do with coding stuff. That is just how it goes. I figured out there was a way that I could pull a number of random outputs from an array. So you take the array, and I think the command was like random many, and what it'll do is it will pull that many, whatever specified number it is, it'll pull that many unique instances out of the array. Like it won't erase them, so the array stays unharmed, but overall you get a number of completely unique attributes from that array. And that was exactly what I needed, because that would mean that I don't need to check anything against anything else, because I know that because of how this command works, it'll never pull out duplicate numbers. So no two events will ever be on the same, you know, space. But then I was thinking, well, my main game, because this was all in the little pet project game that I was just messing around with to get better at coding. But the main game that I'm wanting to make, it has multiple different characters, because it's kind of like an Oregon Trail type thing. So you have multiple characters that the game is keeping track of in your party. And now, what I used to be doing was just have like separate separate attributes for each one. So I would make the character into an object, so the character name would be like Jim, and then thus I would set his object as I would set his object as $Jim, because that's how you set a permanent attribute or a permanent variable, whatever you call it, it's then permanent. And so it would be $Jim. And so, well, actually, it would be $player1 because the names would vary depending on who you have in that character slot, such as like using Baldur's Gate 3 as an example. If you had like Asterion in as like your player 1, then you would need to be able to change the name to Asterion but still have all the code reference to the same character slot. So I would just have it as player 1, not as the actual name of the character, and the name itself would be like a attribute on that object. So you can either set attributes in and of themselves just as a standalone thing. Like if I were to do $RNG and then set RNG to random 120, then that just rolls basically a d20 and then sets that RNG attribute to that value. But you can also set those things to entire objects, and those objects can have like sub-values. So if you do the $player1 and then set it as an object by using certain syntax, you can then put like 5, however many you really need. You know, you could have like 20 different attributes on an object, and so then you can have all this different information. So that's what I was doing. I thought that was like obviously the most efficient way to do it, the best way to do it. Nobody could do it any betterer than me. But now that I know about arrays, I figure out that there is probably a better way to do this, because essentially, you, instead of having 4 different objects that are the different players, you could just have each attribute. Like say you're wanting to store the health of all 4 characters, you could make an array that is health and just have 4 values in it, and then whenever somebody takes damage or heals health, you would affect their number in the array. So arrays always start at 0, so the number 0 is the first part of the array. So like player 1 would be, the array would probably be like $health, so you would do $health in parentheses 1, or no, 0, because 0 is where it starts, and that would be the first value in the array, and thus the first character. But the array would also have the second, third, and fourth characters' healths in there, so it's all just one attribute, thus making it a lot cleaner and more concise. So all you're doing is affecting one number to pull a completely different value out of the existing array. And you could do the same thing for like what clothing they're wearing, what gear they're carrying, what attributes they have, you know, all sorts of things. Like I could set every single attribute that I used to put under their object and just turn it into an array. And I think that would be great. At least as far as I know with arrays, you can affect each specific one, you know, individually, I think. But I'll need to figure it out. But also, as long as I don't add any values to the array or subtract any values from the array, I should be able to keep it consistent as, like, player 1 is always at the 0 point on the array, and then player 2 is always 1, so on. Because the numbering would never change as long as no new values are added. But I can still probably affect values on the array as much as I want. So that's my mind. That's where my brain is going. That's what I think could work. So I don't know though. I don't know enough about arrays. I would need to tinker with it a lot, but certainly it has gotten me quite looking forward to the continuation of me trying to code that game that last time I tried to code it didn't go too well. I mean, it did go well, it just, I wasn't good enough at coding yet to actually do the things I needed to do. But hopefully someday, you know, I'm not hoping to actually make like a full game like this just yet, but I am hoping that someday I will have sufficient things figured out for the game that I'll be able to get some more people on board with it, like make a workable, I don't know, preview? What would be the word for that kind of thing? Just, I guess a demo. Demo would probably be the word that you would use. Yeah, I would like to have like a playable demo that I can drum up over a long time of my somewhat inadequate coding knowledge, and get the premise out there, get people excited about it. Hopefully, if it's at all a popular, you know, gaming format, I don't know. We'll have to see. It's certainly a game that I want to play. I don't know if it's a game that anybody else wants to play. That's kind of the issue. But I need to do a lot of brainstorming as to how things will work and how all the systems will work together, how to make it easier, because it'll be a big game in its final form with a lot of randomization, a lot of, you know, and randomization, like procedurally generated things, are not easy when it comes to being new at coding. Like, it is probably one of the hardest things to just get figured out, because I have tried to do procedural generation, and I'm speaking from experience here, it is difficult, because you just have so many different little things you need to tweak constantly, and so many different outcomes that it could be that you need to plan for. You know, and I mean, the simplest versions are easy because you just do the RNG thing, and then if RNG is equal to 1, this happens, or if it's equal to 2, then this happens. So that, on that level, it's really easy, but I'm hoping for this game to have, like, towns that are simply procedurally generated, but I'll also need NPCs that are procedurally generated, quests that are procedurally generated, so, and that will probably lead to, like, dungeons that are, I'm getting tired of saying procedurally generated, but you get the point by now. And so there's all sorts of things, and I don't even know what the dungeons are going to look like, what the combat system will be like. You know, I could just go for the simple turn-based type combat, but I don't know, I kind of want more. I want it to be more nuanced, or I don't know, my brain's kind of like split on it, because either I need the turn-based combat to be more nuanced so that it stands out, or I want to make the combat really minimal so it flows better as an exploration game, you know? And then it's more about like your stats, your gear, your equipment, rather than actually your skill in coordinating a fight. So I don't know, that's still like a design thing that I'm needing to contemplate and figure out what direction I'm wanting to go with it. But I do think it would be possible to track the positioning of each person on like a battlefield, and then make it turn-based but with a lot more nuance, where you take into account like range of the weapons. Like if someone's using a spear, they'll be able to hit from multiple spots away, but if they're using a dagger, they wouldn't. You know, so stuff like that would also like make some nuance when it comes to choosing what weapon you want people to have, and it wouldn't just be, oh, this does more damage, I want it. You know, you'd have to take into account speed, weight, range, but that's all so difficult to code. Like, having all those checks and balances when it comes to, like, who goes next in the thing, you know, you'd need to have a whole formula for it. And that's a lot. That's a lot of legwork right there. So, yeah, combat is one of those things that, luckily, it's one of the things that I can probably leave for a bit later in development, but it's something I'm gonna eventually have to face. And it's scary. I don't know. The combat system is always the biggest roadblock between me and finishing a project, you know? Because, I mean, everything I think of, I want it to have a combat system, but it needs to flow well, and it needs to be good, and then you have, like, all different types of enemies with different abilities, and, you know, do you build a blanket statement kind of combat system that'll accommodate all types of enemies? Or do you build, like, a specific instance that you go into where each combat is built separately, but they all work about the same, just each enemy is then slightly different with different abilities, and the combat system would help with that, you know? But that's a lot of work. Because the easiest... Why is this goblin drowning? I don't think he should... He's pretty short. He shouldn't be in the water like that. Anyways. So you get what I'm saying. Like, I have made combat systems before where it's like a... Like, it plugs in a bunch of different information to a baseline set of code, and then every combat situation is running off the same code, but just with different attributes. And that's entirely possible. I've done that before, but it has its flaws. Because then, as I said, if an enemy has, like, a special ability, how am I going to implement that into the overall combat system? Because it's not like the scene itself and the large chunk of the code isn't unique to that enemy. So I'd need to figure out a way to make that possible. Or else every combat situation would be the same, except some enemies have higher health or longer range or something like that. You know, I need something to make each enemy unique in some way that isn't just affecting their stats slightly. But yeah, it's a complicated game. I've been contemplating it for, I think, years now. At least, yeah, probably like 2 years, if not more. And it's all set. I don't know if I mentioned, but it's all set, of course, in the world of my writing. So it's all a unique setting, unique. Well, probably not a very unique game because I got inspiration for every system in it from different areas, but you know, nothing's fully unique anymore. It's all just an amalgam of things that you've seen and influences in your life. But yeah, I am indeed ranting a lot, but that's kind of the point of this stream, was just play some WoW in the background and contemplate coding things for quite some time. You know, as long as I want to, really. And I don't know if that'll be entertaining for anyone, but, you know, I don't know, maybe I'll find a group of viewers that are really into coding, and they'll just show up because I put coding in the title or something, I don't know. But oh, they're going for that one. I'll leave them to it. I'll get this one. So yeah, there's a lot to keep in mind, and also it isn't just like the exact game mechanics. I also need to figure out how to make the UI and the look and feel of the game work well. Because I can do stuff on the technical side all I want, but if the user experience is horrendous, that's not going to really get me anywhere. Nobody's going to enjoy it, no matter how good the technical side of it is, if they get in there and are like, man, this is unplayable. So I also need to figure out how to, like, stylize every screen, make sure everything's, like, consistent Because the worst thing about a text-based game is if all the text ends up being in different places every screen, you know? Because to a degree, you want it to all stay homogeneous. You want it to all stay around to the same point, because if someone clicks on a link, like at this point of their screen, then they don't want to suddenly have the next link be way down here. Because then they're constantly, you know, and it's fine if it's like a one-time event thing, and they're actually going to read the text, but if it's like, oh, you want to move to the next portion of the day, and so you press this button and it does some code, tells you what happened, and then there's the next button. Well, if you're needing to do that like 20 times, you're probably only going to skim through the text, and you're going to want to just be able to click that next button as soon as possible. And so to constantly be moving your mouse up and down, trying to click the go to the next screen button is a hassle. And you don't want to hassle your player base and all that. So I need to figure out exactly how to make it so each screen has like the different settings and stuff on, like, in the same general area of the screen. But you can't do that too much, or else people aren't going to know, either they're not going to know when they went to the next screen or what's different about this screen, or it can just become an issue, or it becomes very bland if every screen has the same exact layout. You know, you just kind of zone out and stop paying attention because everything looks exactly the same. So it's kind of a balancing act in that way, where you want it to be close enough that it's not a hassle to navigate, but it also needs to be distinct enough that it keeps the brain involved in what's happening. Which you can do with, like, colors, because you can color certain code and everything. But I don't know. It is quite difficult. I've still been trying to figure out what exactly I want to do when it comes to just the day-to-day movement of the game. Because, oh, I'm done with this quest. Nice. Because when it comes to the gameplay on just a mundane level, you know, which is the level that you need to start with when you're making a game, is how to make this interesting even at the most mundane portions of it. Because it's basically going to be kind of a Oregon Trail kind of thing. So every time you move, you need it to be somewhat interesting as to what's happening when you move and how far you move each iteration. Because in the actual Oregon Trail, I think it basically just you press a button and then you keep moving until an event happens. But for the way I have it set up, and or at least the way that I'm thinking it through right now, it would end up having to be like, at every significant step of the way, you'd need to press the continue button. And that can get really tedious, because you're sitting there and you hit continue, it'll take like 20 of those to get to your destination. You're gonna get very bored very quickly. And so I just need to figure out a way to make it consistently interesting, which is a very difficult thing to do. And I mean, I have at times dealt with real-time moving text. So like, I have made at one point a timer, because there's just certain like macros you can use that'll tell real time and can change things and refresh pages every this many seconds. So I could make it so it's a moving thing like the original Oregon Trail was, where you just press a button and it moves until something happens, at which point it pauses and tells you what happened. But at the same time, that sounds like you have a lot less control over what each of your characters are doing during the traveling, you know? So it's... I don't know. there's a lot of design things. Like I have a general idea and I have been working on it for quite some time, but it's still like still one of those things that it's difficult to pan out because there's so many different conflicting ideas of what you want for the game that you just can't figure out what is actually best for it. Like, I would want to have it be something where every turn, every set amount of time, you get a choice as to what each of your characters are doing. But that's just unrealistic. It's not something that players would want to deal with generally. You know, it's kind of like in RimWorld, if every single like few seconds each of the characters checked in with you and was like, "Hey, what should we be doing?" You know, that would get troublesome. You know, you don't always want to be micromanaging multiple people. It says there's steel bloom up here. There is. All right, my guy, you're gonna need to get feared. I apologize. I already did your quest, but you're guarding a steel bloom, and I can't approve of that. Thank you. I shall be leaving now. Good day to you, sir. I said good day, sir. Okay, anyways. This shouldn't be an issue. Rebubble. Put a new on. Don't pull another tiger. Yeah, we're good. I really like just having a bubble that you can just throw on yourself and you no longer get dazed. It's very efficient. So anyways, back to whatever I was saying. Yeah, so figuring out exactly how the movement is gonna work, how time passing is gonna work, that's... And not even on a technical level. I could figure it out on a technical level. But just in a gameplay flow level is what I'm kind of stuck on. And I keep waffling back and forth as to, like, do I want to have it be something so turn-based? Or do I want it to be real-time? Or should it be a mixture of both? I don't know. It's hard to tell. And, like, how much involvement should the player have in each activity? Like, if you send someone out to go hunting, should your view, like in the Oregon Trail, when you decided to go hunting, your view went with the character and you had to go do the hunting minigame. But I only got on the bird, but that's fine. When it comes to other things in the game, though, those were just kind of passive. Like, when there were even things that weren't even mechanics, like when someone changed clothes. You know, you always needed replacement clothes in the Oregon Trail, but it never informed you when somebody's clothes had worn out and they put on a new one. You know, they never needed to ask for your input on that. So a lot of it was automated, and you didn't even have a say in it. It just pops up on screen like, this happened. And then you're like, okay. But at the same time, I'm like, I kind of want to have a lot more choice in things. Like, you know, especially because there's going to be multiple different types of clothing. It's like, you can't just have your character put on just anything you have lying around. If they're wearing heavy armor, you kind of want your character to put on more heavy armor, you know? If said armor were to, at some point, break. So but then it's like, would the player really want to have that pop up and be like, have to go in and manually set what they're gonna wear then? Or maybe I should have it so that if something wears out, the character automatically puts on another item of the exact same type, but if no more of that type is available, it would then give the choice to the player dynamically of like, hey, this person's, you know, breastplate wore out and is unusable. now you get a choice as to what else they should wear, you know? It's kind of a set it and forget it thing as long as you have enough of those types of equipment available. I don't know. That's probably the easiest way to do it. Probably. But, you know, you need to think, is that too much, you know, player involvement or not enough? And you need to balance it. And it's a very difficult balance. Because additionally, like, I know what I would want, but I don't know what the average player would want. You know, it's very difficult. Additionally, keeping track of, like, I know how the computer can keep track of so many different stats, but there's a lot of different stats that the player would also need to keep track of, and the UI can only hold so much. So I'd need to figure out a way to either reduce the number of stats that the player needs to think of, or find a way to expand the UI itself to encompass more of the stats that are available. But I mean, the only issue comes in when you have all 4 characters, because with only one character, it's easy to keep track of, like, do they have proper equipment? What's the durability on the equipment? What's, you know, all these different things. That's pretty easy when it comes to having just one person. I could have all that information on screen, but if you're having to track, like, hunger, thirst, mood, equipment durability, all these different things for 4 different individuals, you kind of end up with a problem, which is that is then 4 times the already, you know, prodigious number of stats, and how are you going to fit that all in the UI? And I was just thinking, I could set it so that it only displays the character you're selected on stats, but then, like, if someone's starving in the background because, you know, you don't have any of the food that they eat, how would you know? Because it's like, if it's only displaying the stats of one character at a time, you might just completely miss that character 3 is over there starving in the corner, and you wouldn't know. Enemy would probably pop up on screen, but I don't know if that would actually be enough, because I'm sure after a certain point people would just start skimming over all the little stat updates that pop up on screen. So I'm not certain. It's kind of like it once again in RimWorld, where you just kind of skim over a lot of the alerts that pop up, because half the time they're just like, human meat has rotted away in storage, and that's it. That's all it ever is. Except for the one time where it's saying, like, Jimbo is being hunted by an alligator. You know, that you'd want to know, but it sounds exactly the same as human meat has rotted away, so you have no indication. But yeah, I'm not certain. But I mean, I could always just get started on the parts of the game that I have, you know, hammered out and got completely figured. But I don't know. With everything else being such a mystery, it's like you don't really want to get started on it until you know the full picture, because what if you end up putting work into it that then ends up not working out? A lot of people. You already have buffs. They named their pet Buff Me Please, because everyone always forgets to buff the pet. It's a good idea, good name. I wish I could get the Crocolis skins from skinning the Crocolisks. You know, that would kind of make sense, but I guess it would just make too much sense. I could always do a mix. Like, when traveling, things go really quickly. And, you know, because while you're traveling, you wouldn't be foraging while going down a road. You would be just traveling, just moving. And so I could have it be kind of a real-time thing while in motion. But then you can always stop it at any time and, you know, then set up camp and do more turn-based activities. Which, I guess that would certainly make sense. And if I set it to be a real-time thing where maybe every, like, 5 seconds you move one amount of space while traveling. Oh, and then you can always have the, like in the Oregon Trail, they had the thing where it's like, what pace do you want to go at? And things wear out faster, and you eat food faster if you're moving too fast. So that would be nice. I'd like to have that implemented. Because, yeah, as I said, I have worked with setting real timers in the code before, so I could probably implement that. Give me the skin. Thank you. Luckily, you know, playing Priest is as a solo leveling thing is kind of mindless, so I can just kind of sit here and make sure I don't die and not have to do anything else. You know, the only one that would be even more mindless would probably be Hunter. I have leveled Hunter so many times, it's like complete muscle memory. Hey, that's not bad. That would probably sell well. I think my shoulder pads are already... Yeah, my shoulder pads are already better. But then you have... You know, I think that there would still be... Going back to the idea of, like, the arrays and each of the characters having stats and everything. I think there would still have to be things that would be... you know, unique to each character, not just an array of 4 stats, but you would need, like, a separate piece of code for each one, because, say you... Or wait, actually I might be able to... Anyway, I'm gonna try to finish my thought. Say you have player 2 learn a specific spell, then you would want it to be set up that you have, like, an entire spellbook array for that character in particular, of like all the different spells they know. But then I was just thinking, a better way to do that would just be to have each spell have their own array, and have the characters have like a 0 or a 1, or even a true or false. I think arrays can also be Boolean, which is just a true or false system. So I think I could just have it be like, for the spell Mage Light or something, I don't know, that's just the first spell that came to mind. You could have the same 4 things in the array and just have false, true, false, false, and that would mean that only character 2 has that spell learned. So that could work. That would probably be doable. And you would just need to constantly be checking all these applicable arrays whenever it comes up. Though I did hear somewhere that arrays are a bit more, like, computation heavy than attributes are. So, even if it's less bulky, would it be a good idea to turn everything into arrays? Or would that be much more, you know, difficult on the system? But, I mean, it is a text-based game, so while having things not be difficult on the system is a consideration you could take into mind, it also, you need to consider that computers nowadays are so beefy that you would need to do some extensive work on a text-based game to ever make it complicated enough to wear down a modern-day system. Like, computers way back in the day might have struggled with text-based games like the Oregon Trail, but certainly nowadays that is an incredibly easy task for modern computers. So I don't think I have to worry about that too much, probably. But as I know from experience, it's not always just the limitation on, you know, the computer. Like, computation power is one thing, but then you also have the system that the game is made on that has its own limit. Kind of like how Astron's Call is like a 20-year-old game, like 25-year-old by this point, I think. No, I think 23. Close enough. Anyway, and even that will start to, like, bog down. Oh, hey, 36, nice. But that'll start to bog down if you try to do too much. If you try to, like, if you set the graphics settings to high. Because I did that at one point. I was like, you know what, this is a really old game. I could probably max out the graphics settings and my computer would be fine. But it turns out the game system itself, like the engine the game was built on, couldn't handle the highest graphics very well. So it ended up causing issues. Not like lag, but it would just crash every so often because I guess the thing was having to build an entire environment with higher graphics settings. It was just a whole to-do. But certainly what I'm trying to say is that the system you build the game on has its own limits that you don't want to surpass, even if the computer it's played on can. So I guess I still need to take it into consideration to not have the code be too bulky unnecessarily. I need to kill some of these. But they're stealthed, so they're hard to seek out. But yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna do, is probably make it so there's two different settings. Cause yeah, my main issue with the flow of the game was when you're in motion, you're just constantly hitting continue. Because it's like, you moved this distance. Continue? And you have to click, and then it moves to the next thing, and it's like, you moved this distance. Continue. And it gets really, really old. Really, really fast. Why? Why do they have to put the steel bloom next to the boss? I just want my steel bloom. Anyways. Yeah, so having to hit continue multiple times just to move any amount of distance was a big issue with development previously and with the flow of the game. So if I make while in motion, just have it be a real-time thing that every few seconds it refreshes the page and moves you another distance, that would work out quite well, I think, in theory. But while stationary, I could still have it be kind of a turn-based system where you can make sure everyone's still on task of what you want them to be doing. Like, Jimbo's our best forager. I want them to be out foraging whenever possible. Also, my brain has once again been deficient in the way that I was just in Stormwind and I didn't train the next level of my herbalism and skinning. Why do I always do this? Anyways, I guess it doesn't matter all that much. I'll just need to do some extra farming later to get my gathering skills up to snuff, you know? But yeah, that would make it kind of an interesting mix between turn-based and real-time, and then you would also have it be that whenever you're stationary, you're able to get a lot of materials pretty easily, but anytime you're in motion, you're basically just relying on the materials you already gathered, because you can't, like, forage while moving in that setup that I'm envisioning. And so you would need to just live on your current food supply, and if you run out, you would need to stop and gather food for like a couple days to get your food supply back up. So that would probably work. That would be good. And then of course while you're moving there would be events and stuff. So what I'd probably do with that would be I would have it so every time you move, because like every few seconds it would do an interval. Well, the few seconds is the interval, but it would have this interval at which you move and you cover a certain distance during that time. And then every time that happens, I would probably just have a % chance of an event happening. And I don't know, that should probably be variable depending on region, because like if you're in the middle of the woods, there's a higher chance you'd get attacked by wildlife than if you're in a more developed area. So I'd need to make things dependent on what region you're in, and then, you know, set the RNG accordingly. But every so often there should be an event that stops your travel and has, like, this person got dysentery, you know, the classic Oregon Trail type shenanigans. Because, you know, you can't make an Oregon Trail type game without loads and loads of dysentery, you know? Like, it is the iconic, most iconic part of that game, is just everyone gets dysentery all the time. Alright, so plan is, I guess we run south, and we'll kill any of the Shadow Maw Panthers we find along the trail, and then we'll get to Booty Bay, turn in our quests, fly back. Should we fly back to Stormwind or Hearthstone? We can Hearthstone. So yeah, we'll get to Booty Bay, we'll turn in our quests, we'll Hearthstone, and then we'll start heading up to Dustwallow to do those quests. Good plan, me. Thanks, me. So yes, that is some of my contemplation. I'm sure I'll figure out another aspect of the game to start contemplating in a few seconds here, but until then, I don't have much to say, because that's basically all I've been doing this stream. It is the contemplation stream, where I voice all my ideas out loud, because I don't know, it's just what I've been thinking about recently. Let's see, where's perception? This might help me. No, that's not a panther. I want the panthers, not the tigers. What even do I need for the tiger quest? Oh, I already finished the tiger quest, right? Because that just had the... I don't even remember what his name was. The big tiger. Non-elite, but like boss tiger. So yeah, I already finished the tiger quest. I just need the panthers and the raptors, which are both higher level. Those panthers, they're hard to find. I didn't see any running down through there. I assumed one would maybe like aggro on me randomly, but no. It was just tigers. And so additionally, this is in the same kind of vein as the other stuff of like how intricate do you make the game as opposed to how streamlined you need to make it. I personally like going for as intricate as possible, like realistic, intricate, all that kind of stuff. Kind of like how I'm gonna have it set up so there's two different types of water, just so that if you get water from an unsafe source, there's a chance that it'll be unsafe water, and if your character drinks the unsafe water, then they can get dysentery and stuff like that, sicknesses. So there's that, and that's just kind of mainly realism based, because, you know, gameplay wise, you could very well just have it be that all water's the same, like tell your character go drink some water and they just do it, and that would be a lot easier to code. But back in the day, you know, back before a bunch of chemicals were put in the water to sterilize it, we used to have a lot of issues when it came to water. Like, I know nowadays people are familiar with the idea of water going bad in the way that if you leave it in a plastic bottle for an extended period of time, it'll taste funny. But back in the olden times, when water wasn't treated, water could literally go bad, because, you know, water can have bacteria in it. So, like, if you get a water skin and you fill it with water one day, then maybe like a few days later, if you haven't drank all that water yet, the bacteria will reproduce and it'll make the water taste sour. And that, a lot of the time, way back then, actually got a lot of people sick. So that's also something. Like, I could, instead of just having it be like, oh, some of your food supply went bad, it's also like, oh, some of your water went sour, you know? And people who aren't familiar with that even being a possibility might be sitting there scratching their heads like, how the heck did my water expire? But, you know, it happened. So I would like to put it in as like a realism thing, even if it would be harder to code than just to leave it be. Because that's just how I am. I like realism, you know? Realism is my cup of tea. But then you get to other things like, you know, how automatic should certain stats be if you're going to even add them in. Like, it would be realistic to have like a hygiene stat that affects like trade prices. And if your hygiene's really low because you've been walking on a trail for like 10 years, you would get bad prices because everyone would be like, man, this person's, you know, caked in dirt. I don't want to trade with them. I'm going to give them bad prices because, you know, screw them. Why are they in my shop? Getting the place dirty. So it would make sense. But then you have to factor in, like, well, would the players then bathe automatically whenever they have a chance, or would you have to specifically tell them to do so? And if you do have to specifically tell them to do so, how do you keep track of that stat very easily? How can you make it very convenient to do that? How much time would it take? Additionally, like, if they do it automatically, why do you even have it as a stat? You know, like, just to punish people for not finding a safe body of water every so often? Like, that would be a really weird thing to punish because the player wouldn't be in control of that. That's just RNG. Additionally, there'd probably be water sources in town, so if it was an automatic thing, you would think your character would just wash up before going into a shop either way, and so why is it even a stat? So, you gotta consider all these things and try to balance the pros and cons of each idea. Like, personally, I feel like when you're stationary, it would be advantageous and worthwhile to implement a system that you would need to assign your people during that time slot to go and take a bath. Because if you're like, if you know you're close to town and you want them to be clean for trading or other such things, you would want to schedule that. Additionally, there's, you know, infections. If you're not clean, you're gonna get an infection in those days. Even in these days, you know, it's just easier to treat infections now.
Partner. I hope your stay in my town is enjoyable and uneventful. Emphasis on the latter. We've got plenty of drink if you're thirsty.
And Goblin sponsors it. That was in
You should be all
Shimmering
set to
Flats, which I'll be in that region, so I might as well take that. But yeah, I do think, at least with that example, the hygiene example, I'd probably have that be something you need to specifically task, but that's another stat that you'll need to be keeping an eye on and keeping in mind, and that'll also be taking time away if you decide, oh, I don't want to get infections, so I'm going to keep everyone as hygienic as possible. Then that'll be taking away time from foraging and crafting things and all the other different activities you could possibly be doing. So, you know, if you have too many of those, then you'd end up in a situation where you don't have enough time to do all the stuff you need to do. Okay, what quest did he just give me? Oh, that's the Elder Crocodile skin, right? So that's why they just have random, you know, elite crocolisks along this shore, is because you need them for a quest. That makes a lot more sense. Okay. Anyways, we're gonna go back to Stormwind. I need to remember. I've been trying to remember this for like 10 years to actually go and train skinning and herbalism to the next level. Because if I don't, especially going over to the other continent, there's a lot of animals over there to skin. So let's see, herbalism's over here. There's a high chance that they won't allow me to learn the next level of herbalism from the same person. Because a lot of the time they have that where, you know, you need to go to an artisan one or something, like, not just the journeyman herbalism trainer or something. But I was, as I said, I was pretty sure that's for only production professions. We'll see.
Another herbalist.
No, I can just grab it right here. Ooh,
As
that's
great
expensive.
as my own, so perhaps I can train you in a few proper techniques.
Well, now my skill's as great as her own, because I can't learn anything more from her. And luckily I have the skinning trainer's location memorized as well. Because, you know, I play a lot of hunters, so skinning and leatherworking is kind of the norm. But yeah, I could probably set it so that each task that somebody has is also like an array. Because what I was doing previously when I was just having it all be attributes was, like, if I was gonna be having someone's task be forage, then you would have it as an attribute just called like task or job or something, and then when you select set job to this, it would have to affect that and set it to something that the game can recognize. But then you have a lot of spelling issues and stuff. But if I can just have it be an array of, you know, these are your, you know, 4 people,
I don't get too many skinners in here
and
looking
these are
to
the
train,
4 jobs
but
that
I
they
guess I
can,
could teach you something if you're
or
ready.
like the first position would be this is the job that the first person is assigned to. But then I would need to clear that whenever the job is completed. So there would be still a lot of code involved in that, even if I turn it into an array. And then, of course, I would need to have the whole thing read what each of those parts of the array are and execute other code accordingly. Which would be kind of difficult, because that would probably also end up being a bunch of if codes. Which usually you don't want that. It ends up being very bulky. Where am I going? I was just heading towards the flight map, but I need to go to the other continent, so we're gonna be going to the tram, to the flight master, to Menethil. Additionally, I could have stayed in Booty Bay if I didn't need to get training back here. I could have stayed in Booty Bay. Oh, I can get class training. Let's do that too. And taken the boat over to Ratchet, and then just flown down to Theramore. But either way works. I needed training, so we gotta do it this way. I really should just, I'm not finding any light feathers. So I should really just buy some off the auction house or something. Because I need at least one. So I can prevent fall damage, if necessary. If and when necessary. Because it'll probably happen, most likely. I've only fallen off of a high thing once on this character so far. But who knows when it'll happen again. On another question is, do I pick up where I left off last time when it comes to coding? Because I still have the project
I trust the light is with you, adventurer.
from the last time that I was trying to code this game. So I'm like, do I start over, start from scratch, and try to make everything just perfect? Or do you, like, just pick up where you left off and try to work with it? Because I'm not sure.
Be careful.
Okay, we got some new stuff. Let's see. Yeah, fortitude, very, very nice. Though this 700 mana each, that is painful. This goes up to 381 shielding. Let's see. Yeah, the next is Holy. We got Holy Fire. Holy Nova, which I still haven't really been using nearly as much as I probably should. So it's very situational. So I don't know. Okay. So we didn't get too many things, but they were all very expensive. So I'm kinda temporarily broke on this character. Of course my mule has like 75 gold, so we're good on money overall, but would it be easier to stop at the bank here or in... Is the Dwarven District bank in this version of the game? I don't think it is. But let's go that direction. We'll see if the bank is there. If it isn't, we'll just go across the tram and do the bank in Ironforge. But yeah, I should probably start from scratch, right? Because I am using a completely different system for, assigning and reading stats. So in the end, I think that trying to you know what I'm saying, trying to remaster each of the earlier stat setting things would be a lot harder than just starting from the beginning and figuring it out as you go. This oh, this is like a courtroom at this point. That's cool. Yeah, I've never seen this before. I don't know, maybe it's the Ironforge Embassy or something. I'm not sure. Well, whatever that empty building is, that's cool. Certainly ain't a bank, though. So we're still gonna need to stop by the bank in Ironforge. So yeah, I'll just start from scratch. Should be fun. We can remake all the easy code. Although, I would almost say that the difficult to code parts are the most fun, because you only need to do them once. Whereas the easy to code parts are the worst, because it's like you've already coded that stuff a million times. So to code it again is more difficult than the more complicated portions. I have these on key bindings, but I never actually use them. Oh, that's some good fortitude right there. Hello. There's a person. Have some fortitude. Additionally, even though a lot of the game is going to be procedurally or randomly generated, I'm also going to need set like locations, because the way that it's going to work is there's going to be a lot of set locations on the absolutely immense map, but each individual location you're going to have to travel to, and they're pretty far apart between each other. And so you're going to see other places and events in between towns. So like if you're going from one city to another, you might run across like a small village halfway through there. That's just determined by RNG. Like you could run the same path 50 times and find a bunch of different villages that are just all random. They're never going to actually stay there. So, you know, the randomly generated stuff in and of itself poses complications, but the hardest part would be all of the set things, because I would need to have all these towns with, you know, set buildings and their own NPCs that all probably need names. And I don't know if I've ever talked about this on stream, but naming is like my kryptonite. I I can handle every other part of writing pretty consistently, but naming in and of itself is just, it's so difficult. I have a very hard time thinking up original, you know, names that'll actually fit in the universe. So having the daunting task of making dozens of towns and cities and populating them with named NPCs it's not fun to look forward to that. That's gonna be tough. Luckily, a long while ago, back when I was first brainstorming about this game, I already set up most of the names of the towns. So that's good. I might need to revise some of them, possibly, but all in all, that should be figured out for me, which would be nice. That would be a good idea. And I would only need to worry about naming things once I actually start populating those towns, which I don't know when that'll be. My bank is a lot more full than I thought it was. That's kind of an issue. Okay, this is sell. That goes in there. This is sell. The quest item. These are just bombs. I don't usually use bombs, especially because they don't even stun, so I'm probably just gonna sell those. They don't seem very useful. Steel bloom goes in there. I would be putting all this stuff up on the auction house, but I'll do that at a later date. Ooh. Enchanted water is as good as sweet nectar. You know, I should actually, you know, I should start just farming these elementals, because they're very, very nice. It's like I only killed like a dozen of them and I already got 18 enchanted water. You know, that is a good ratio if you ask me. And you know me, I'm like incredibly stingy when it when it comes to buying water. I hate running out of water. Like if somebody just gives me like a couple stacks of conjured water, they're like my savior. I'm sitting there like, this person, they are the chosen one. They have come to free me from waterlessness. Cause yeah, it's I don't know why I care so much. It's because water's cheap. Like the expensive stuff is food. Water is usually like probably 10 silver for a stack or something. And I'm sitting over here like, why have you done this to me? Why do I have to pay for water?
The Wildhammer dwarves might have fast steeds.
Because yeah, I'm just very dramatic that way, I guess, and very stingy. But you know, that's why I just pick up every single barrel of sweet nectar I see, and thus you get water, and then you don't have to buy it. Or you know, sometimes you just need to sit down and farm elementals for a few hours, you know, to get a lifetime supply of enchanted water. Yeah, I'd do that. You know I do that. Like, if I didn't have coding to be doing after the stream, I would sit down and farm those elementals for hours. just to get like 5 stacks of water and just put 4 stacks in the bank, keep 1 on me, and never have to worry about water again. Oh no, I'm turning into Morg. Like, she always like hoards the glitter world medicine, even if we send like 20 in a bunch, and we're just like, use the glitter world medicine for our surgeries. She's like, no, must preserve glitter world medicine. And I would be like, you know, the exact same when it comes to water, because I was thinking, even if I had 5 full stacks of water, I'd probably still, like, half the time sit there and wait for my mana to naturally regenerate rather than sit down and drink just to save a water. So I suppose the supply of water does not matter. My stinginess will always be the same. But it's just funny because we always get upset at Morg for not using the glitter word medicine when it's the exact same situation, just with water. A little hypocritical, I must admit, of myself, but it is what it is. You know, all humans are hypocritical to some degree at some point, I'm sure. You know, tis how being human is. Let's see. Where are we? We're trying to go to Theramore, so yeah, just this boat. Any barrels of milk? No? Okay. Yeah, no barrels of milk. That's sad. Because I think so, or I guess it would be melon juice. I think some barrels of melon juice can spawn on this dock. I saw them a while ago. But they're not always here, so... Man, someday I'm gonna be on a mount just like them, just like her, except not in shadow form. And I think I'm going for more of a black mount, or the spotted one. I think it's the Pinto. That one's nice. That one's real nice. I am a bit of a horse connoisseur, you know. I'm very, well, not really particular. I like all horses, but I have very specific tastes that. You know, the spotted ones, very nice. The just plain brown ones, I mean, they're still nice. I wouldn't hate on a horse for just being plain brown, but personally, if I had a choice, I'd go for, you know, brown with white spots over brown any day. And here's the paladins with their free mount, nyek. Not having to save up 100 gold just to be able to move 40%? 60%? 60% faster. Nyek. There's a lot of people waiting for this boat, and a lot of people with mounts. I'm starting to feel like left out here. Cause it's like I'm the only person waiting. There's 6 other people on mounts waiting for the boat, and I'm just over here on my own. I don't have a mount. It's just kind of sad. It's a bit lonely over on this side of the dock. But yeah, I definitely like the horses best out of any of the mounts on the Alliance. I think the horses are the nicest. Although the big cats are a close second for me. They're real nice. But it's funny because there have been times where I try to get exalted with Stormwind on a night elf to be able to ride a horse, and other times where I try to get exalted with Darnassus on a human so I can ride a cat. Like. You know, like, I always mix and match them. I don't know why. On this character, I'm just going for a horse. Because, I mean, if I was really wanting to get, you know, exalted with Darnassus, I would have needed to, from the get-go, do every single Night Elf quest in existence when it was yellow. Just to maximize... Oh, of course, there's another guy on a mount. It makes 7 of them. And then there's me. But yeah, I would have needed to do all the Night Elf quests at yellow just to maximize that reputation gain. But of course I did not do that, so it would be a lot harder for me to get exalted with Darnassus at this point. I'd probably need to do the you know, collection of wool or silk thing that you can do, the daily quest. Or no, it's not daily, it's just a repeatable quest. And do that like 2 million times to get my rep up. That's such a waste of cloth. You know how much money I could make just selling that cloth on the auction house? A lot. And just being able to ride a cat probably isn't exactly worth it for that kind of time and money investment. I never sold. I kind of need to. And the elemental water, it sells for 4, but in the auction it's 5. Is that worth it? I'm not sure. Hey, we're moving. Nice. Let me up. Let me. Thank you. But yeah, it's, you know, coding is complicated. There's a lot of different things you need to keep in mind and figure out. And you know, personally, I wouldn't be bringing the boat so close to the shore here. You know, it's a big boat. It would have a lot of underwater size. You know. Of course, I guess most people don't consider that. Like, if you've never driven a boat, you wouldn't be sitting there coding the route for the boat to follow with how deep the boat goes underwater in mind. But when you're actually driving a boat, you need to keep that very, very, very much in mind, because you don't want the I forget what it's called. Is it the keel? It's the big counterweight at the bottom of the boat. You don't want that to run aground on any kind of reef or something, because that is expensive. And you know, of course, the bigger the boat, the more of the boat is going to be under the water, so yeah, no, you need to keep it in mind. It's something you need to consider. Of course, in the game, I'm you know, I've been talking about this whole time. I'm definitely gonna have boat travel, which will be fun. You know, it's such a big map. You'd probably want to be able to get around across the waters. You know, go up and down rivers, mostly down rivers. You don't go up a river.
Where would you like to fly to?
Oh, I'm not flying from here. I'm actually doing quest here. I forgot. But yeah, generally back in those days, you would not. Even nowadays, I don't think you usually want to go up a river. You know, because just that is so fuel inefficient, and it would never really work out. But down rivers, certainly. You know, I don't know how much people use rivers as a form of transportation nowadays, but I know back then
I can't help it if I feel sorry for old Jim there.
You know, it was a very, very popular form of travel.
I'm working on a dish I call Mudrock Soup and Bugs.
I'm just gonna pause the talking for the moment, because I've been doing a lot of talking. I do not like being interrupted by all these NPCs. Where's this quest? Oh, it might be in the basement. But yeah, no, where? It says it's right here. Is it you? Oh, it is, because that's just the high perch venom, which we can do. I think you find a lot of these things a lot in this area, right? So those are just the. No, those are the ones in. Yeah, in this region. Yeah, let's not do that one. Where is it? Because that's like way out of our way. We're gonna be probably going through the Shimmering Flats, but we're not gonna be, you know, staying in Thousand Needles all that long. Although, you know, in a game that is very much about traveling, I do need to try to balance out any kind of fast travel, because I was thinking of using boats as kind of a fast travel, but at the same time, that's, you know, that's a bit, I guess if I just make it
Well
really
met.
expensive,
Be careful. Go with honor, friend.
because in theory, you know, if you're gonna be traveling on a boat, I'd probably have it so that, because you can't really forage on a boat very efficiently, and you especially can't really get much more water until you have gone to port. But yeah, that would cause issues, because if you were actually using your own food or water supply in that case, you might run out and not be able to gather anymore and just have everyone die at sea. So you would need that to all be included in the original cost of traveling somewhere by boat, and just have it, like, lore-wise be that you're eating the food and water supplies on the boat itself and paying for it. So that would probably be the way to get around that. And the high cost would make it so that, you know, it would only be preferable if you were using it to avoid traveling an extremely long distance. Which is probably how it would work, because there's certain areas that are like large inlets. I don't even know what you'd call those, because they're bigger than like a bay. But I don't know, I guess a sea? Yeah, because a sea is a thing where it kind of comes in from the ocean. Oh, a bat pet. You don't see those very often. But yeah, so there are many different, like, seas and bays and large water, you know, structures, masses of water that you would want to cross, most likely. So having boats would facilitate that, and would be able to cut a lot of time. Like, if you need to get halfway across the entire world map, you probably wouldn't want to just walk unless you're super poor and can't afford to have your group hire a boat. That would be an issue. But I don't know. I'm also tempted to just make it so you always have to just walk places, because that's like the main meat of the game, is walking everywhere and traveling and exploring. Tough decisions. My first thick leather. Oh, it says at auctions for 6 silver a pop. Now that is a lot of money. You know, if you get a full stack of those bad boys, that's a gold 20 just for a stack of leather from enemies you'd probably already be killing. You're just skinning them. That's a good deal to me. You know, it's always been weird to me that the turtles have like an inner shell layer and then the outer shell layer. I'm no turtle expert, of course, so I have no idea how turtle shells actually work. All I know is that it's their rib cage. You know, like the shell itself is part of their skeletal structure and not just something that's latched onto the outside of their body. But other than that, I have no idea how turtles work. Like, but it's just always been weird that there's that little lip there that moves kind of independently of the shell and like it's part of the body, but I don't know. And I guess as a tortoise, not a turtle, which there are differences. You know, I mean, of course the main difference is tortoises are generally land-walking creatures, but there might also be differences in how the shell is attached and all that, because I believe tortoises generally have larger shells compared to their body than turtles do, as far as I know. Once again, I'm no expert. I have no idea what I'm talking about, as is true half the time, probably. I mean, I'm a streamer. I'm not any kind of reliable source for any kind of, you know, scientific information. Like when you go to your doctor, don't just quote me saying, "Oh, they obviously know best. They're on the internet." Because I certainly do not. I know nothing of tortoises. Why you'd be talking to your doctor about tortoises, I have no idea. But this is a hypothetical situation. It doesn't need to make sense. You know, they might be killing all the tortoises I need for the quest, but they're leaving the skin for me. So I appreciate that. And I just upped my skinning and herbalism skill cap, so we're gonna be getting all the skill tonight. I wonder how much does turtle scale sell for? Pretty decent. You know, for skin, that's on the higher side. Oh, there's a lot of, somehow there's tortoises, a lot of tortoises in the water. Even though I was just saying I'm pretty sure tortoises are like more land, you know, residing creatures. But apparently they swim a lot at least in this game they do. Not sure how accurate that is. We might as well kill some in the water. Why not? Is it even attacking? Did I bug out the tortoise because I'm fighting it in the water? Oh no, it is attacking. It just doesn't have a sound for attacking or an animation. It's just kind of sitting there. It's hurting me with its mind. Yeah, let's try fighting these things mostly on land, because it's a bit weird just having them sit there and I'm just taking psychic damage every few seconds. You know, it's not usually how combat works. Reapply that. Keep fighting. Especially because I was way off my groove in the water because I was trying to figure out if they were even attacking me. And so I forgot to reapply my bubble and damage over time and everything. Which, you know, isn't smart. You gotta have those things up all the time, if possible. And they're really like way out in the water. Which is good, because that means there's more tortoises, sorry, for me to kill. Because the rogues seem to be staying on land, but I don't know. Because yeah, with the bubble up, it doesn't pop up any other than like when it misses, but it's just like we just sit here. I'm just attacking and it doesn't look like anything else is happening until my bubble breaks, at which point you can actually see that he's hitting me. Man, these tongues are really... I mean, I guess I've only killed like 5 or 6 of them, but 1 out of 5 or 6 is not really a very good drop rate. He's kind of lopsided. That's fine. You know, whatever he wants to do, I can't judge. Maybe I should go back to the shoreline. Because, yeah, all these ones out here are just kind of difficult to get to. Gold thorn, that's nice. But yeah, I feel like I've been trying to think of other things to speak on in regards to the coding stuff, but I think I've said my piece. I think that's everything that's coming to mind for the moment, at least. It was a lot. It was a lot to talk about, which is good. Well, I mean, it's partially good because when streaming you're supposed to be talking a lot. Because if you're silent, that's just kind of an issue. You don't want a bunch of dead air. But at the same time, why are you trying to attack with a staff? Don't do that. At the same time, it's like you don't really want to talk too much, or else you kind of wear out your voice. You know, like yesterday I was talking a lot, and my voice was completely like thrashed after 4 hours. And my voice is still kind of feeling that today from yesterday, and so now I'm talking even more than I was yesterday, and that's just not making it much better. So that's also partially a good thing as to me doing a short stream today, because then I can not irritate my voice too much and help it recover for tomorrow's stream, at which point I will talk again a lot more for another 4 hours. So a lot of talking to do. And once again, you switch over to staff right there. Why would you do that? Just keep wanding. Oh, but another issue with a game of this scale is that I can make it in such a way that, in theory, it all works perfectly. But since everything's RNG based and, you know, all over the place, it's very hard to actually test it all. Because you could have an event that in testing just never comes up. And that's kind of an issue, because, you know, and I know that if I ever eventually get it to a point where it's like a demo and I can release it, then there might actually be a lot of people playing it, and thus you get a lot of feedback and bug reports and stuff. But it's just until that point, until you actually have people playing it, you're on your own trying to test every little, you know, aspect of the game. I'm gonna wait for them to... Should I? Maybe not. Because they probably have more stuff that they get. Yeah. I'm just gonna head back this way, skin the stuff they already killed, and continue on. Because yeah, it's kind of creepy to just follow them around skinning everything they kill. Plus, I'm doing a public service because I believe skinning the enemy's corpse makes it so that the next enemy spawns faster. See, it's not greed. I'm being altruistic. Man, but it's nice that these guys drop the turtle scales and the leather. Like, when it comes to scorpions, they either drop leather or a scorpion scale. And so you kind of lose some income that way. Whereas with these, it's like you're getting the normal leather every time, but you're additionally getting the turtle scale on top of it. And that is very nice. That's just pure profit right there. Oh, but with coding, one of the issues that I was having a little while back that I have figured out, and it'll be very useful for this game that I'm talking about, is I figured out how to set it so that you can go back to the last area, you know, that you were at. Because if you go from, like, a physical location into your inventory, then you've code-wise moved. Whereas, like, your physical character, lore-wise, is probably still in the exact same position. But to the code's perspective, you have, like, moved from a physical location into a menu. So I was having issues because it was like, how am I going to pull up a menu and then be able to bring the character back to where they were in the physical world dynamically, you know, without setting it like, if they are at position this, set, you know, send to position this. That would take forever, especially with bigger games where you have possibly hundreds of different locations to be. That it would be a hefty chunk of code. But it turns out all I need to do is set an attribute to constantly update to being the name of the passage that you're currently in, if the passage contains a certain tag. So I can just tag every physical location as, like, with the location tag, and then set it so that any time you're in a location with said tag, it would set an attribute to the name of that passage, and then when you enter your inventory and leave, it will send you back to the last area you were at that was counted as a location. So, still kind of a whole to-do, but certainly it is much more doable than I originally thought. And, you know, a lot more simple, you know? Because honestly, I had a lot of other ideas that were a lot more complicated, but you gotta simplify things. Make it easy on yourself. But it's been... let's just keep going either until we find all the turtles or until the 2-hour mark. And then I'll probably end the stream. So that would be in 2 to 12 minutes. Yeah, quick maths. Because yeah, right now we're skinning more than we're actually collecting the stuff. Because I mean, while I could be pulling the enemies from offshore, I also, you know, can't leave all this skin lying around to just despawn. You know, if these guys are gonna go through the trouble of killing all these things, I might as well go through the trouble to skin them all. That's just free money for me. You know, I may not get my quest done, but I'll certainly get closer to Mounthood. Okay, so you killed that. Now, the question is, do I continue following this line of... Oh, these I can't even skin. That's just rude. Can I skin this one? I can. Yeah, I was gonna say, it's a question of if I continue forward or go back to skin the one he just killed, but the ones forward were unskinnable, because some weirdo didn't finish looting it. Which is a horrible crime, you know? It is punishable by death. So let's see. We could keep following the corpses. They're starting to despawn every so often. Or we could go off and start killing some of our own, which is probably for the best. I mean, skin is good, but we can also get skin if we just kill them ourselves, so... I'm still contemplating whether a combat system is necessary or not. Or if it would even fit best. Because, like, if you're gonna have dungeons and stuff, you probably want combat. Because dungeons have monsters, and monsters require combat. You know? But combat systems are so intricate and confusing that I'm kind of trying to avoid making one if I can. But I feel like, especially with the game being so laid back, I probably would need some kind of excitement at some point. So a combat system would be advantageous. Oh, but another issue I was facing was being able to determine who was doing what. Because, like, I could have the attribute that sets, you know, who's doing what task, but then when you're calling upon that, what if you have, like, 3 people who are all foraging? Well, you would need to be able to sense that, and then increase the output of the foraging appropriately, because you can obviously get more food in one trip if you have 3 people going rather than just 1. And it's like, I could set it so that you can only have 1 person doing each job at a time, but at the same time, that's, I don't know, that's kind of cheap. Because what if your entire group is starving, and I just abstractly set it so that you can only have 1 person foraging at a time, and so you're not pulling back enough food to keep everyone fed, and you just die. Like, that wouldn't feel good. That would be really sad. So I'm not sure. I would need to make it so you could have multiple people go out doing each task at any given time. And I don't know, maybe there's a way to read, like, have the system read the arrays and see if there are any duplicates. Because if you set 2 different people to the same task, then there would be a duplicate value inside of the array. And quite possibly you could then, you know, read how many duplicates there are and change some stats of what the outcome is accordingly. I'm not sure. I just recently learned how to use arrays at all, so I'm just working with what knowledge I currently have, because I'm not able to, you know, I'm not currently coding while playing. I'm just thinking it through. You know, the sad thing is that I'm getting into this right at the, like, end of my coding cycle. So, you know, at a certain point, pretty soon here, most likely, I'm going to become completely disinterested in coding again, and have to drop the project for another few months until I get back to coding. Which is very, you know, it's my curse. Out of anything that I have had to deal with in my life, the cycles that my brain goes through that makes it so I need to constantly be picking up things and dropping things is probably the worst curse I deal with. It's like, no matter how much I want to finish that game, I'm always inevitably gonna fall away from it and stop doing it for a while and then come back way later. And then, if I've learned a significant amount in between dropping the game and picking it back up, I might end up restarting my progress on making the game, because I've learned so much that some integral systems need to be completely reworked, and I feel it's easier to just remake the game in its entirety. Which, I don't know, probably wouldn't happen every time, but it certainly happened a few times. Like, I have made, quote unquote, this game. I've made the file for this game and started working on it probably like 7 times already, because I just keep learning new things and figuring out, man, the way I did this before sucks. I need to restart. Need to tear it all to the ground and get a fresh look at this. stop resisting my Shadow of Pain. So yeah, it is, I would say it's a gift and a curse, but it is only a curse. But hopefully I will be able to push through it and possibly actually get the game done to any degree. You know, and it's an issue that affects writing as well, as is evident by me writing like half of a short story and then taking a like month or two hiatus from writing, because it was like I was in the writing mood at the time that I was writing that, and I've now fallen out of it, and so I cannot write. It's a difficult predicament to be in. Let's see. 8 thick leather. That's quite a lot. 8 turtle scales and 26 heavy leather. That is a good amount of money. I should probably also sell the turtle meat, because it sells for almost double. And a significant bit below double, but it's you know, people need it. There's that one quest in South Shore that you need turtle meat for. You know, that makes it worth it, right? I still never sold. Why did I not go to a vendor? Let's see, this is also all selling stuff. Probably want to keep, yeah, I'm gonna try to auction the turtle meat. Probably auction all of this and sell all this. I would put the auctionables in the bank, but my bank is full, so that's not exactly a viable option at this point. Man, but just all this free skin. You know, I also get free skinning training because, you know, every like 5 enemies in here is giving me a skill point in skinning. You know, I'm surprised all these corpses are still here. Like, how fast did this guy have to kill all these things in order to make it so their corpses are just all here from like 2 miles back? And I'm pretty sure he was moving this direction, at least when I last saw him. But maybe when he was killing them, he was moving out this way, and thus I'm just following the trail of skinnables perfectly in time with it. I don't know. Alright, well here's Theramore. We're at town, so I think I'm just gonna go into the town, log out in the inn, which I haven't done in a while. I've just been logging out wherever, honestly. Yeah, we're gonna log out in the inn, and that's gonna be that for the moment. Just a quick 2-hour stream, you know. Just had a lot of things to talk about, a lot of things to think through and kind of think out loud, as it were. You know, I was gonna say, man, everyone has world buffs. Where the heck are they getting all these? And I realized I think it's usually at like 250 that they drop world buffs, so it just happened an hour ago. So everyone still has them. Oh wait, not that. This one. Anyways. Yeah, so that'll be it. We're gonna pop over to this screen and do that. Okay. So yeah, that was me ranting about coding for 2 hours. hope that was fun. I don't see how it would be, but I hope it was. Okay, goodbye. That's it for today. See you tomorrow and all that.